What's good? It's Woog. You know how earlier this year we had Naoya Inoue versus Stephen Fulton at 122? Well, this matchup here is probably as good as it gets anywhere below 122. We've got Jesse Bam Rodriguez, 18 wins and 0 losses, defending his WBO Flyweight title against Sonny Edwards, 20 wins and 0 losses. Sonny Edwards will be defending his IBF Flyweight title. So this is a unification bout at Flyweight, and like I said, this is about as good as it gets anywhere below Super Bantamweight 122. And this fight, again, is Flyweight 112. Bam Rodriguez is now a 2-division champion. He had gone up to 115, where he really had his breakout fight against Carlos Cuadras, and then he just doubled down in that division, beating Srisaket Sor Rungvisai, and he stopped Sor Rungvisai in the 8th round. So those back-to-back fights in 2022, again, Carlos Cuadras, which earned Bam Rodriguez the WBC, the vacant at that time, WBC Super Flyweight title, again, 115, it earned him that belt. That fight against Cuadras and then the fight against Sor Rungvisai, those really put Bam Rodriguez on the map. And that kind of skyrocketed the reputation of Bam Rodriguez so suddenly that even though he was competing in a weight class, in a division that also has Juan Francisco Estrada and Chocolatito, Bam Rodriguez's performances were so good against Cuadras and Sor Rungvisai that I saw some people elevating Bam into their top 10 pound for pound. I kid you not, they might have since removed him from their top 10 pound for pound, but I saw some people putting Bam in their top 10 because they were that blown away by how good he was looking in those 2 fights. In fact, some people had him as a top 2 fighter of the year for 2022. Most people gave it to Dmitry Bivol. That's who I gave it to. That's who some of the most esteemed publications gave 2022 fighter of the year to, Dmitry Bivol. But those who were on the fence were debating between Dmitry Bivol and Bam Rodriguez. It was pretty wild. Not to say that he didn't have a fantastic year, and not to say that those performances against Cuadras and Sor Rungvisai weren't fantastic. They were. But you want to talk about somebody being relatively unknown. I know he fought Jose Alejandro Burgos, and he had some notable fights, but those 2 wins did so much for Bam Rodriguez's reputation. But his next 2 fights kind of had him in pretty deep. He was in tough in those 2 fights, the ones against Israel Gonzalez and the one against Christian Gonzalez. Now, the one against Israel Gonzalez was just it was relatively lackluster compared to those 2 prior wins, but he won the fight, retaining his WBC Super Flyweight title, and then he went back down to 112 to allow his brother, who I believe has since retired after his close loss to Ioka, that brother being Joshua Franco. Bam Rodriguez's brother fought a title unification against Kazuto Ioka. They fought to a majority draw the first time, and then Ioka got the unanimous decision win over Joshua Franco in the rematch. And yeah, I think I read something about Joshua Franco retiring sometime shortly after that fight. Let me know if you have any more information on that than I do. But Franco had actually missed weight for that rematch against Ioka, so it was only Ioka who could win those 2 titles. But Bam Rodriguez left that division to allow for his brother to conquer the division, to do his thing without Bam being in that same division. So Bam comes back down from super flyweight to flyweight, and he fights Christian Gonzalez, and he was in tough in that fight as well. Bam Rodriguez, suffered a broken jaw that he had to fight throughout much of that fight. And Christian Gonzalez was a very different fighter than Sonny Edwards. Christian Gonzalez was a tall fighter. Sonny Edwards is, I believe, 5'3". Christian Gonzalez was a couple inches taller than Bam Rodriguez, had a good reach on him, and was a southpaw who was moving backwards. So as Bam was advancing, Christian Gonzalez was letting some nice left-handed counters go. He was letting some nice uppercuts go. So yeah, Bam won that fight via unanimous decision, but not without taking a good amount of punishment himself. But, you know, that fight did do a lot to show how much fortitude Bam Rodriguez has. He really had to, you know, dig deep, just like he had to really kind of gut out that previous fight, the less than spectacular one against Israel Gonzalez. So again, for all the craze that had developed around Bam Rodriguez's name because of the Quadras and Sor Rungvisai wins, I would say that the craze kind of diminished with those fights against Israel Gonzalez and Christian Gonzalez. And so now Bam Rodriguez is fighting Sonny Edwards. Sonny Edwards is no joke. For those of you who haven't seen, because, you know, for a while he wasn't fighting on any of the most prominent networks, and for a while he was like signed to Pro Bellum. So you really had to look for Sonny Edwards fights. He didn't have one of those big deals where a lot of us, at least us in the States, were able to see, you know, a lot of Sonny Edwards' fights. But you look at his fight-by-fight schedule, he has beaten some very good fighters. He beat Maruti Mitlani. Mitlani was a former two-time champion who fought like Nonito Donaire way back in the day. Mitlani was a bit older by the time he fought Sonny Edwards, but Mitlani's had a really good career. Muhammad Wasim, that's another really good fighter that Sonny Edwards beat via unanimous decision. He also beat Mitlani via unanimous decision. And Sonny Edwards, by the way, is not going to be the power puncher out of these two. If anybody's got, you know, more pop per punch, is Bam Rodriguez, who has a greater than 50% knockout ratio. Out of Bam's 18 wins, 11 have come via knockout. Sonny Edwards, out of his 20 wins, has only knocked out 4 of his opponents. So he's winning just about all of these fights though via unanimous decision. In fact, he does not have a split decision win anywhere on that record. It's all unanimous decision. So he might not be knocking people out, but he's beating them pretty demonstratively, round over round over round. And he's a very good boxer, technical boxer. I know Bam Rodriguez has a reputation right now of being a very good boxer, but we'll get into the matchup itself. But Sonny Edwards is an excellent boxer. So he's beaten Mitlani, he's beaten Muhammad Wasim, and his next 2 fights, his 2 most recent fights, might be 2 of his best wins. One against Felix Alvarado, and that fight was seen to be not necessarily a pick'em, but close. Felix Alvarado was a really good fighter, a former champion in the division below, and Sonny Edwards was able to outbox Felix Alvarado. A lot of people thought that because of Alvarado's, you know, pressuring style, his intelligent combinations, that Alvarado might beat Sonny Edwards, but no. Sonny Edwards beat Alvarado, and it was a very competitive and close fight. Yes, it was unanimous, but the scorecards were like, 2 of the scorecards were 115-113, and the third was 116-112. So that was a very competitive fight in Sheffield between Sonny Edwards and Felix Alvarado. And Sonny Edwards' most recent opponent, and I believe this was the first of his DAZN matchroom deal against Andres Campos, that was pretty much the one that Sonny Edwards had to win because they were angling for this Bam Rodriguez versus Sonny Edwards matchup. And Sonny Edwards did what he had to do against another really good opponent in Andres Campos, and Sonny Edwards won that one, and all 3 scorecards read 117-111. So that's 9 rounds to 3. So the way that I'm looking at Jesse Bam Rodriguez versus Sonny Edwards, first, let's look at the betting odds. Right now, Bam Rodriguez is at a -200. So these aren't wide by boxing standards. These aren't wide betting odds. This is seen to be a very close and competitive matchup on paper. And if you look at the measurables, yes, Bam Rodriguez is only 1.5 inches taller than Sonny Edwards, is 5'4.5" against 5'3". But if you look at the reaches, my goodness, you've got Bam Rodriguez, a southpaw, by the way. He's got a 67-inch reach to Sonny Edwards' 60-inch reach. So this is a 7-inch reach advantage. Very unusual given their nearly even heights. Again, it's 1.5 inches difference in height, 7 inches difference in reach. Very unusual. Bam Rodriguez has like the reach of somebody who would normally be competing at like featherweight or even lightweight, you know what I mean? Whereas Sonny Edwards has, you know, his arms are proportionate relatively to his height. So between these two guys, Sonny Edwards is actually the slippery, sweeter science boxer between the two. Well, sweet science is a little more complicated because you can be an intelligent pressure fighter like Bam Rodriguez. Bam Rodriguez is that quintessential Robert Garcia fighter. Now, there have been a lot of Robert Garcia fighters who are not as technical as Bam Rodriguez. Bam Rodriguez is a technician but he's also a pressure fighter. He is somebody who kind of pressures you because he throws a good amount of punches, but he's not just in there just kind of winging and breaking you off with a bunch of combinations with both hands, putting his head down and coming forward. No, he is boxing you from the outside, and he's using his intelligent footwork to get good angles to let intelligent punches and combinations go. So his footwork is very highly reputed. But Sonny Edwards, I would say, has the busier and maybe even the quicker feet between the two. So as good as Jesse Rodriguez's footwork is, again, Sonny Edwards is much more of a mover. He's moving around the perimeter. He is basically moving, getting you to follow, and then hitting you with a couple combinations, slipping your punches, hitting you with very accurate shots. Sonny Edwards is a very accurate puncher, as is Bam Rodriguez. That's one of the things that makes this matchup so fun. Both of these guys extremely accurate, and they are both very technical, but they have very different styles. Bam Rodriguez is usually the one who's going to be coming forward. Just look at how he walks Sor Rungvisai down. Just look at how he looks like he has Carlos Cuadras surrounded because of how technical and how quick his punches were and the way that he was taking angles against Cuadras. I swear, one of the knockdowns against Cuadras was him having Cuadras so bamboozled by the angles that Cuadras basically turns into a punch and gets hit so cleanly. It's like Jesse Rodriguez had a free shot against Cuadras and he dropped him with it. So how do I see this one playing out? I think it's going to take Bam Rodriguez a few rounds to really find Sonny Edwards. I kind of think Sonny Edwards is going to get off to a little bit of a lead here. Now, I know that this fight is in San Antonio, or I'm sorry, this one is in Glendale, Arizona. So yeah, my bad. Like the last fight for Bam Rodriguez was in San Antonio, but this one is going to be in the US. This is a case where you've got the British fighter traveling to the US. I think that Bam is going to have a bit of trouble tracking Sonny Edwards down. Sonny Edwards, again, very elusive, very slippery. I would say that he's the slicker. That's the word I was looking for. Sonny Edwards is actually the slicker of these two fighters, even though they are both technicians. But I feel like this fight is going to hit a point maybe in the 4th or 5th round where Bam Rodriguez is going to start cutting the ring off more intelligently, and Sonny Edwards, as the fight continues, especially if Bam doesn't headhunt and goes to Sonny Edwards' body, Sonny Edwards in the second half of the fight is going to be a bit easier to find. As good a mover as Sonny Edwards is, you'll see that in some of his fights, like the fight against Alvarado and the most recent fight against Campos, he moves a bit less. Like a lot of movers start moving less in the second half of the fight, to where there's a point in the fight where they'll have to start standing their ground. The question is, when Sonny Edwards is not as elusive in the second half of the fight as he was in the first half, will he be able to put enough on Bam Rodriguez to where Bam Rodriguez starts reacting to Sonny Edwards' feints? And can Sonny Edwards back Bam Rodriguez up? I know that in exchanges, when they both let the bullets fly, there will be moments where Sonny Edwards gets the better out of the exchange. The question is, will it deter Bam Rodriguez, who's proven to be able to take a shot, who's proven to be able to work through pain and keep on coming forward, keep on applying that intelligent foot pressure? As much as it is the hand pressure, it's just as much or equally foot style pressure that Bam Rodriguez applies. And again, it's not that head over skis, clunky, brawler style pressure. It's a technical pressure. But will Sonny Edwards at some point in the fight be able to stand his ground and to be able to combat the illusion that Bam Rodriguez is walking him down? So again, I think that Sonny Edwards is going to get off to an early lead. I think Bam Rodriguez is going to start closing the gap in the middle rounds. The question is, what happens then? I kind of feel like Bam Rodriguez is going to start winning some of the late rounds. Even again, I think that the more elusive and the slippery, the slicker of the two is Sonny Edwards, but I think that Bam's style of pressure, because look, Sonny Edwards, in my view, doesn't hit as hard as Bam Rodriguez's last couple of opponents, and especially not as hard as Christian Gonzalez, Bam Rodriguez's last opponent, the taller southpaw. But, you know, I could also say that Sor Rungvisai and Carlos Cuadras don't have nearly the movement or the slipperiness of Sonny Edwards. Sonny Edwards is totally different than the two fighters that Bam Rodriguez really made his name against, which is another thing that makes this matchup so interesting. Bam Rodriguez hasn't fought anyone like Sonny Edwards, and vice versa. Sonny Edwards hasn't fought anyone like Bam. But I do kind of think that Felix Alvarado is a closer approximation of Bam, even though, I mean, very different fighters. And again, Bam Rodriguez is a southpaw, Felix Alvarado is orthodox, but you can't say Sonny Edwards has fought better competition than Bam. I mean, Bam has fought like more former champs, and the former champs that he fought were higher esteem. But, you know, Sor Rungvisai was like 36 years old when he fought Bam. Carlos Cuadras was post-prime when he fought Bam. So, yeah, it's almost like you have to throw those couple of fights against Sor Rungvisai and Carlos Cuadras, you know, out when you think about how Bam is going to do against Sonny Edwards. But I do think that he's got enough of a skill set to start closing the gap on the scorecards, assuming Sonny Edwards gets off to that early lead. And I'm going to take Bam here. I think that Bam is going to win probably a unanimous decision that looks something like a 116 to 112 style fight, to where he starts looking like he might put a little bit of a beating on Sonny Edwards. Again, Sonny Edwards is so good defensively and throws accurate punches, but I think that Bam, there is no way Sonny Edwards gets out of this fight without this fight turning into a fight. You know what I mean? Turning into something that requires you to stand there a little bit more and start trading. And again, a lot of this, I think, is predicated on whether Bam Rodriguez invests to Sonny Edwards' body in those early moments where Sonny Edwards' head is more difficult to find. But I think that he'll do a lot of that. And I think that as his boxing match turns into a bit more of a fight, I think that Bam will maybe pull away isn't the phrase, but he will win this fight in a very close, like something 115, 113, 116 to 112. I don't think it's going to be a split decision, though. I think that Bam will win by at least 1 to 2 rounds on each of the judges' scorecards. But yeah, I'm taking Bam Rodriguez via close but a unanimous decision here. Let me know how you see this one playing out. This is a very interesting matchup between Jesse Bam Rodriguez and Sonny Edwards. This is one of those fights where it was easier to make because they are in very, very, very small divisions where the fighters haven't been blessed with as many like huge paydays. And, you know, it's not like trying to get 2 A-level heavyweights heavyweights in the ring together. Although it also helps that Sonny Edwards signed with Matchroom. So, you know, Bam with Matchroom, Sonny with Matchroom, it makes that one a lot easier to do as well, which is also why you were able to get a lot of good fights, very good matchups with like Chocolatito, not necessarily because of the promotional alignment, but just that, you know, usually fights below featherweight. You know, we just got Naoya the Monster Inoue versus Stephen Fulton. And, you know, the weight classes even below that. I just feel like the unification fights and the fights that matter are a bit easier to make because it's not like welterweight stars or middleweight stars or heavyweight stars where you've got guys who are demanding this much, playing those different political games and trying to like sell their narratives to get the press and the public to believe that the other guy is ducking them, when, you know, you don't get as many games like that. It's like, good fighter, boom, let's make it happen. And in this case, that's what we got. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on Bam Rodriguez versus Sonny Edwards in the comments. And also, if Bam Rodriguez wins this fight, or probably win or lose, he's probably going up. And I think he said he's going to go back up to 115, where again, he's already won a belt against Carlos Cuadras, but he's going to go back to that division 115, which I feel like most fans want to see him compete in that division, regardless of what happens with Bam Rodriguez versus Sonny. I mean, maybe they fight a classic and there's a rematch, we'll see. But if Bam goes back to 115, that's the weight class with Estrada, Chocolatito, and so forth, even though those guys are aging as well. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.